as I promised, here he is, Sheriff Mark Lamb. And is he a brother from another mother or what? Can you see why so many people are asking me, are you Sheriff Lamb? Are you Sheriff?
I'm sure you get it all the time. I'm sure you get it all the time.
They've said it so many times to me that I was almost going to arrest somebody.
Does everybody know that you live in my county?
Now they do.
Yeah.
So God always moves me around, and here he puts me in Arizona next to my brother from another mother. So for 4 years, maybe 5 years, they're like, do you know Sheriff Lamb? You should see him online. I hadn't looked him up because I wasn't focusing on Arizona. We are now, aren't we, people? Especially with this issue and crisis with the border.
Yeah.
So this man, I endorse. And I endorsed him before I actually met him in person. I've always endorsed. I've met him in person and I talked about him. But I looked into his background. He's a straight shooter, no pun intended. He's a straight.
I better be a straight shooter.
Yeah, no joke.
Right?
Yeah, he's a sheriff. He's been vetted. He's a good man, and he's running for Senate for the great state of Arizona against Kari Lake. Now, I did a Kari Lake video that I was really excited about with that recording. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in this interview about his experience with Kari Lake. But I want to give him a platform. I've talked enough. Mark, what do you want to tell your audience?
Well, look, right where we're at right now, we're out here in one of the southern parts of my county, not far from the Native American reservation, and about 75 miles south of us is the border. This mountain you see between the two of us is called Tabletop, and we actually have scouts, cartel scouts that live in those mountains that guide their loads through, whether it's be people or drugs come through here. This area used to be, back about 10 years ago, was a huge marijuana corridor. They were bringing in thousands of pounds of marijuana. Over there you see all the trash, the residue, the backpacks, all that stuff.
Yeah, Mark took me for a tour and showed me all the backpacks in this area. Maybe we'll cover that. I'll show that to you guys later. And
during President Trump's administration, that was the best we saw with the border. And the only places we would really find them were here. Like my county would have more apprehensions than the border county because they would come through the desert areas and dump out into counties like mine, my county, to be able to be picked up by other people. And that has kind of changed now. The border is the face of it has really changed over the last 3 years. So we don't see as much traffic right here in this area. We used to see it daily. Now we just don't see it as much because it's so easy for them to just come across the border. So, and they can
I've been telling you that.
Yeah. So now they just walk across the border, and then you've got either the government that's giving them help, or you've got NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
Yes.
That's our tax dollars.
Southern America.
And they're taking our tax dollars and they're giving these folks plane tickets, cell phones, even gift cards sometimes.
You obviously, you got your finger on the pulse of what's going on being a sheriff. What do you plan on doing when you're in that swamp that we call Washington, D.C.? What are the major issues that you want to address for the state of Arizona?
Look, politics is a weird thing because we've got these politicians who'll come out there and tell you, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Pandering.
And frankly, that's just unrealistic. If you know anything about government, if you ever watch Schoolhouse Rock, you know how things work, right? The three branches of government. I played that video, yeah. I'm just a bill. Yeah, right? So you know how government works. And look, I realize that I'm one of 100 senators going back there, but I'm one of almost 3,100 sheriffs across this country right now. And yet Pinal County, when you talk about Facebook followers or YouTube followers, predominantly Facebook followers, we're number 2 in the nation, only behind the FBI. We just passed up NYPD for Facebook followers.
Really?
And so we have been able to garner a lot of attention here at this county. We do it for reasons. We do it for hiring. We do it to promote our profession. We do it to really highlight the good work that our men and women do here at this agency. And that is the reason why we've been so out there publicly and do a lot of these things on social media. I say that to say, like, even one of 3,100, I can have an impact on this country. Trust me, I like the odds of one of 100 a lot better. So the answer to your question is, first of all, I understand just, what role I play. I play a role in one of 100. And then you still have Congress on the other side. So bills have to go through Congress and the Senate. what Senate does is they do a lot of these cabinet appointments, judge appointments, and I think you need a seasoned investigator, somebody that knows what it means to interview people, interview and interrogation. I think you need a lot of that. I think with the issues that we're dealing with, the main issues in this country that we're seeing right now, and it's not just Arizona, it's all across America, is the number one issue is the border. The economy is number two, and those were back and forth until recently. Now the border has become the number one issue. Crime is rising every day across this country. Here in Scottsdale, we have these Chilean gangs and Venezuelan gangs breaking into people's houses, committing crimes. So we got some real issues. And then you got national security. So if you take those top four issues, I mean, look, you're not going to find a candidate that is more experienced. And one of the things is I didn't want to do this. My wife and I were trying to come up with reasons of why not to run for Senate.
I understand.
And in that process, we started kind of looking at what these core issues were that Americans were dealing with. And there's an old Danish saying that says, whoever has the ability has the responsibility. And my wife and I ultimately just said, look, we've got the ability. There's no candidate that's more experienced on the border issues. I've spent the last nearly 2 decades dealing and fighting crime and reducing crime in my county successfully over the last 8 years as sheriff. I have managed a large budget. I'm the only candidate who's managed a large budget, over $60 million. And I balance that budget and I stay within that budget. Imagine that, a government guy who stays within the budget.
And he's sheriff too.
Right. So, I mean, when we looked at those things and said, look, we have the ability, who am I to stand on the corner and watch the building burn to the ground? It's just not in my nature. And so my wife and I prayed about it. I combined, we prayed about it and prayer through much prayer. But through much prayer and consideration, we ultimately felt very compelled to get into this race and do what we can. We've been able to do a lot here in our county, but there's a lot of issues, and I don't know whether we'll touch on them today. There's just a lot of issues.
It's all about how much time you give.
All right. Well, there's a lot of issues that we've tried to fix on the county level, but you realize that they can only be fixed at the federal level. And so we need that proven conservative leader and fighter to go back to Washington, D.C. and fight on behalf of we the people.
Can you guys see why I endorse him? I mean, he's real. I mean, this is not pandering. Okay, let's talk about Kari Lake. All right, I'm going to segue into that. Now, I liked Kari Lake, and I was very excited about that recording and everything about her snagging that guy and him getting busted. That was really cool. And I did a video going, I love Kari Lake. Well, this is my correction video. I don't have to do a correction video because I'm doing it with Mark Lamb, who's running for Senate. Tell them what you told me about the offers that you got when you decided to run for Senate.
Well, first of all, Kari's a friend of mine, and so she's passionate like me about Arizona. I got into the race back in April of 2023, and then she made the decision, and she probably did a lot of what we did, prayer and consideration. Ultimately, she made the decision. She got in April, and look, the key is that one of us has got to take this Senate. We cannot afford to have, the option that's on the other side. Gallego is just not going to be good for not just Arizona but America. He has pushed the same policies, very socialist policies, and so we just cannot have that. And so we both agree that this is a fight that one of us has to be able to take this state back. And this is a red state, and what we're both trying to do is pull that party together. When she did get in the race, though, I've had multiple people come to me and ask me to get out of the race, offer me different things, the U.S. Marshal, to be in a different position.
This is through her people?
Look, I've just had a lot of people come to me.
Okay.
And, look, I'm in it because I feel compelled to do it. I mean, what kind of man am I if I just, walk away because somebody offered me something? And look, I'm the sheriff already. I don't think there's much better positions. I think the sheriff is better than the Senate. I think you have a lot of autonomy and you have the ability to really serve your people. And the only bosses I have are the people. And so there's a real power in that. And that was really hard for me to give up. And so, look, any offer to me is just not, I'm doing it because I feel compelled to do it. And that's the reason.
It still blew my mind. I mean, it was one of Mark's people that told me about this. He didn't run and tell me this, but when I saw how do I explain it? When I saw that it was the same thing you dealt with, is that she recorded, I couldn't believe, I hate to say it, it's hypocrisy. And then when a cheating wife, when you catch her, then all of a sudden, you become aware of the past. You connect all the dots. So then I kind of like got new eyes to it about pandering, and I'm just focusing on pandering right now. And Republicans and Democrats, any politician that's pandering, it's so obvious to me, and I hope it's obvious to you. He's not pandering. He's not pandering. He's just saying what he feels. It's like, what?
That's why I ran.
I know, but I'm just like, what?
I'm like all other Americans. I was just tired of politics. I'm tired of the way that how hateful politics and divisive politics have become. You know, as sheriffs, one of the things that we learn to do is the reason why a sheriff makes a good politician in Washington, or a good servant leader, I should say, a good statesman. I always consider myself a statesman, not a politician. You know, George Washington.
Is that because you get so much airtime?
I don't know. Okay.
He gets more airtime than I do. I'm like,
it's
wait
the
a minute.
Hat. That's all.
Yeah, right.
So
and your good looks.
You're saying that because we look alike.
Exactly.
I
mean that in the most heterosexual way.
Thank you. Because we're standing out here in the middle of the freaking desert.
Love it.
So George Washington was a statesman, and one thing you'll never find is George Washington was never attacked anybody. You know, George Washington was focused on the issue of protecting America, fighting for freedom.
And he chose not to run again.
And not only that, there was another story where they came to him and people were complaining about George Washington. And so the other politicians came and said, hey, you know, these guys are complaining, saying this and that. And George Washington said, well, yeah, look, if you need me to step down and you want to put those guys in place, then go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on. We didn't say that.
Yeah, who was the guy that was, Hamilton? Was it Hamilton who was trying to keep him in, just desperately trying to keep him in because he wanted to hold the office? I think Hamilton was trying to talk him into it. But
yeah, so look, I'm trying to be a statesman in this country first and foremost. But the reason why sheriffs make good statesmen, and you've got a few right there in the Congress now that are doing a really good job. Congressman Troy Nels, really good guy. The reason why is because if your house was on fire, or there was thieves in your house, or which we do, they're just taxing us more and more every year. And if there was a domestic situation in your house, you know, like mom and dad can't get along, which is what we have in this country. Mom and dad, you know, the mom and dad can't get along, and we got so much division even amongst ourselves. Who are you going to call? Are you going to call a politician? No. You're going to call your local sheriff. Why? Because we're trained and experienced in restoring balance and order to chaos. That's what we do. You call us, within minutes we show up to your house, and we are expected to start to restore balance and order to whatever chaos is going on. And you know what doesn't matter when we do that? Politics, race, religion, any of those things don't matter.
They like to try to spin that in the media. They try to spin that there's a political motivation, but there's not.
Well, I've even had like the Politico and other places have said, why are you so political as a sheriff? And I said, I'm not. You are. And the politicians are. You guys are politicizing things that shouldn't be political.
Exactly.
And then you're putting us as sheriffs in a position to take a stand. And when we take a stand, which is what we're supposed to do, we swore an oath to the Constitution. When we take a stand, then they deem that as political.
Yes.
They come back to me and say, well, you
were making so much sense.
And I'm not. I'm just standing up for the people.
Not that he's not making sense.
So.
He's making sense.
And that's what we need. We need statesmen. We need people that are going to protect the people, protect the constitutional rights. And you need people that are experienced in that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I've seen the worst of the worst. I have to show up to people's houses when the worst things can be going on. We have seen evil on a level that we hope the average citizen will never see. As a matter of fact, the average police officer will experience 400 to 700 traumatic experiences in their career. The average citizen will only experience 2 to 4.
Wow.
So it gives you an idea of just how seasoned we become in dealing with crisis, with chaos. And our job is to restore that. Washington needs somebody that can restore balance and order, and that puts all that other garbage aside to do what's right for the American people.
Is this guy not like what we need in Senate? There's only 100 senators. Every state gets 2 senators. We need him to be senator. And Kari Lake, if you're watching this, which you might be because you saw Mark's name and everything, I'm happy to do an interview with you. I'm happy to do that. I give everybody floor time, but I am endorsing Mark. You know, just if you just still want to talk to me about it, even though I've endorsed them, I'm more than willing to do that.
I'm actually going to send her a picture because my son works at the sign shop, the people that print all the signs, like your yard signs and stuff. And somebody sent me a picture the other day. My son was working at the sign shop and was doing Kari's signs while I was working at the sign shop. So I thought it was funny.
See how neutral he is? Look at that. See if he's helping out.
I got to send her the picture because I thought it was funny that my son's in there.
We'll send her a picture of us too. I want you to know that you got a twin. Is there anything else I mean, we've covered pretty much everything I can think of. I mean,
look, it's a lot more than that. There's a lot going on. You know, the border is one of the main issues. The economy. Look, Bidenomics is not working. You're going to continue to see. They're now saying they added 275,000 jobs in this last quarter. I just saw that. The problem with that, I'm going to go back to the border too, a couple more things, but the problem with that.
You have all the time you want.
Okay. You don't want to say that. But
no, I mean that.
Look, the problem with the 275,000 jobs is a lot of those tend to be government sector jobs, but overall unemployment continues to decrease. We're at an all-time low for the history of the country for people actually in the workforce in this country. I think it's at 62.5%. So we're not, even though they're adding jobs, which a lot of these jobs were jobs that went away during COVID.
Exactly.
Even though they're doing a touchdown dance for adding jobs that went away and now are coming back, most of those actually are part-time jobs as well. They lost 1.5 million jobs, full-time jobs last year, and only added 769,000 part-time jobs. So there's a lot of problems with the economy. And I was doing an interview with a guy locally, and he's like, well, you know, I think it's really good they're adding all these jobs. And I said, like, you're doing a touchdown dance for adding jobs that are coming back from COVID. But let me tell you how I know we're in trouble as Americans, because the credit card debt for Americans over the last year, in 1 year, went from $765 billion to $1.1 trillion.
What?
That's an increase of 40% in credit
card
debt.
Say that again. Say the number.
$765 billion to $1.1 trillion in 1 year for credit card debt.
Wow, that's a number
for
I didn't know
Americans.
about. I didn't know about that.
So you cannot tell me that the economy is good and that Bidenomics is working when the average American is deep in debt. Auto loan delinquencies are at an all-time high.
A lot of repos.
Interest rates are at a 20-year high.
Yep.
So look, the economy is struggling, so we've got to get people that understand what it means to stay within a budget. We've got this government, they have no money, they're $34 trillion in debt, and they're proposing a budget that is $7 trillion. It is twice as much as it was pre-COVID. That is ridiculous. That means that what we have done through COVID is we have added so many government institutions, so many government spending places, that we now have doubled our budget from 3 to 4 trillion before COVID to 7 trillion now. And you have a government that refuses to make any cuts. I think that's a real problem. So that's one of the reasons, obviously going back. Part of that, going back to the border, like that border bill they tried to run recently. It wasn't a border bill, first of all. It was a global assistance bill. They wanted to send money to other countries.
Yes.
And there was so much bad about it. They said, well, if we get to 5,000 people a day, we're going to put a stop to it.
Yes.
Well, Sheriff Grady Judd he's out of Florida.
Love him.
So he's doing this.
I want to interview him too.
He's doing this press conference and he's talking about it. And he goes, and he's just so matter of fact the way he says things. He says, listen, if you can stop it at 5,000 people a day, then you can stop it at 0 people a day, which is a great point. If you're going to say, well, we'll stop it at 5,000, that means you could stop it whenever you want. And I wanted to also say, like Joe Biden keeps saying he needs a bill. He needs another bill. Give me the bill. Give me the money and I'll fix the border.
Right.
He doesn't need that, folks.
No.
He has all the power and authority under Immigration Naturalization 212F to fix this border situation. He does not need a bill. He used the same authority to undo all of President Trump's things that were working. Those policies that
within a month.
Take it from a sheriff who deals with it.
Yeah.
Take the politics out of it. This border situation was night and day difference under President Trump, and it just flipped immediately the first day they were in office.
I went to McAllen, Texas.
And it just has progressively gotten worse and worse. And one more thing, I got a lot to talk about the border. So that border bill, two of the things that I really hated about the border bill, other than the fact that it wasn't a border bill, they were adding another $2.3 trillion for all these NGOs, these non-governmental organizations that are aiding and abetting in human trafficking into this country and aiding and abetting in an invasion of our country by military-age men.
Yes.
Because the majority of these people, folks, are military-age men, and that's the other thing I'm going to talk about. They also had over $9 trillion going to global assistance through the State Department. Basically, that money was going to go back to the UN. Now, the UN admitted, recently I did a video a couple months ago where I said, when they come across, they're giving these people cell phones, they're giving them plane tickets, and they're giving them gift cards. And the media went to work to try to debunk me. They said I was lying. They said it was false information. Verified did this thing, said I was false. And I was like, who are you getting your information
Exactly.
from? The liars in Washington, D.C. that told you that the border was secure or that nobody was walking across the border? So it was probably about a month later that, and by the way, my information is legit because it comes from Border Patrol agents right here on the ground. It comes from my own two eyes.
Can I interject?
Yeah, please.
I just met a Border Patrol agent. Of course, I'm not going to say his name or anything like that. But he was very open to me and speaking to me about politics, which was kind of surprising to me. But I was always saying that there's about 12,500 approximately illegals coming across the border. And he kind of smiled at me. I was like, why are you smiling? Why are you smiling? And he says to me, there's actually more like 23,000 every day. So I was like, of course, my jaw dropped and I closed my jaw, and I appreciated him sharing that with me. I love to get intel, especially, it's got to be from people that are official like Mark. And I went back and I had to report that. And what I realized was how many days are till the next election, the upcoming election. And I did the math on 23,000 or 22,000 a day. And it comes out to like 6.5 million people, million more illegals are going to be in this country by November. And they're doing it for votes, people. They're doing it for votes. Have you experienced a lot of like Asian military males in your work?
Well, that's what I was going to tell you. Let me just top off that other NGO thing.
Sorry.
So the UN, after I did that, the UN admitted that they had given $1.6 billion to 248 NGOs in the way of gift cards. They were giving out gift cards and cash to people coming into our country illegally. So I had a real problem with us giving more than $12 billion to more to NGOs, to organizations that were actually funding these people coming in.
And a lot of them are kickbacks too. It's not even going to that.
Yeah. So what was the other thing we were talking about? The people coming in. Okay. Yes.
I'm leaving all this.
This is actually good. You shouldn't change it.
No
the other thing that I wanted to touch on that you just hit on was, let me tell you how this is different. As you can see, we've been out here a long time, and I told you a little bit about what we used to deal with border stuff. And in Arizona, for decades, we've been dealing with border issues. It hasn't permeated throughout the country like it is now. It has been, a lot of those people would come here to Arizona, California, maybe trickle into some of the other surrounding states, and they would come in and work. And majority of them were from Mexico, or they were from a little bit from Guatemala and some from Central America.
Venezuela.
And you got some family units, but it was very different. The bar graph, if you were to look at the bar graph, the majority of the bar graph would be for people from Mexico or from Guatemala. And then they had this small little category called OTM, which is other than Mexican.
OTM.
That is the term that the Border Patrol and the government uses. They don't like to use it now, obviously. They don't even want to call them illegals,
No, they're non-citizens, right? Isn't that what Mariocas? Yeah. I can't pronounce it.
They're illegal, so they're here illegally.
How do you pronounce his name? Mariocas?
Mayorkas.
I get what he said. I can't. I got a block. Anyway, go ahead.
The way it's changed is, and I've been telling people this lately, over the last 3 years, this has changed dramatically. This is not the border situation that we used to see. Now what we see are predominantly military age men coming from countries all over the world, 170 different countries, by the way. A lot of them are coming from, we saw Haiti initially. I think you're going to see a huge influx in Haiti now because of the instability in their country. You're going to see a ton of people coming from, we already are, from Africa, from Sudan, from Mauritania, which actually, by the way, is a leading breeding ground for Al-Qaeda. We're seeing, I think there was 15,000 last year from Mauritania alone, military age men.
Wow.
You're seeing them coming from Syria, the Middle East. You're seeing them coming from Russia, from Ukraine. But one of the things you mentioned was they're coming from China. And last year was 37,000 Chinese nationals that came into our country.
Were those the ones that were caught?
Well, they're not even caught because they just walk across the border and supposedly claim asylum.
Oh my gosh.
And then our government is giving them, transportation.
Why is the government doing this?
Not only that,
doing this? Yeah, I mean, why is it happening? Why
I'm
would
going to
they
tell
allow
you
a
something that'll
takeover?
piss you off even more after I finish up
All
this
right,
one.
go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
37,000 Chinese nationals last year. This year, so they always start their year on October 1st. That's how the Border Patrol starts their year. So when they talk about a year, they talk about October 1st to September, the end of September. So since October 1st through the end of February, they already had more than 20,000 Chinese nationals. Through about the middle of February, 20,000 Chinese nationals that had come in this year. Wow. So we're on target to nearly doubling the 37,000 we had last year.
Was that 55,000 then total for 60,000?
Well, so far, but we're going to end up at 50. We're going to probably end up at about 60,000 Chinese nationals this year if we continue down.
Oh, just this year.
And 37,000 last year.
Yeah, I'm adding them. Yeah, it's close to 100,000.
In 2021, they only had 450.
Oh man, this is getting scary.
It's very scary because those people, it's a communist country. You and I as Americans, we could get on a plane right now and fly to Costa Rica or the Europe or whatever we want. They're communists. They cannot do that. You can't just get on a plane and fly away from your country.
I know.
You have to have permission from the government.
Yes, you do.
And so you should be alarmed that there is nearly 100,000 Chinese
oh my gosh.
by the end of this year under this administration that will have come in. That we know about.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a full-on army.
That is a full-on army.
And they're almost all military-age men that are coming through. So here's another thing this is the part that's gonna really tick you off. I was just listening to a guy that was talking on Tucker Carlson.
Love Tucker.
And he's talking about these Chinese, and he's talking about all the other people that are coming here. The Afghans, when they were leaving Afghanistan after Joe Biden bungled the Afghanistan
that was so embarrassing. And we lost 13 service people because of an American hit.
And by the way, when that dad expressed his anger at the State of the Union, I think they arrested him. I haven't confirmed it, but
I mean, you got to be careful about screaming at the State of the Union. I totally understand. I totally understand his passion. Yeah, I know you got to have compassion,
or at least let a jury,
Yeah,
whatever.
no, they should have let him go.
I don't want to get too off topic because I heard that he was saying that when these folks are coming across, people who are on Social Security are getting $1,400 a month, and most Americans, homeless veterans, a lot of them aren't getting anything.
No.
We have a lot of other American homeless that are struggling. We have Americans who are working hard every day that are struggling. And then we have these people that our government are giving a lot of them $2,200 a month. More than what our people that are who work their whole life are going to get through Social Security. We're giving people that came here under a false asylum claim or illegally, we're giving them money as a government. I mean, that is why they need $7 trillion, because they're taking our tax dollars and they're helping everybody else but Americans.
It's got to be for the votes.
When you wonder why I want to run for office, you can start to see my anger and frustration. I have been able to protect my herd here in Pinal County from the wolves.
Your herd.
But at some point, somebody has to go hunt those wolves, or they're going to continue to multiply.
Yeah.
And then eventually, I won't be able to. The best sheriff in the world can't. And I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying
you could be the sheriff in the world.
Best, whoever it is. That person would not be able to stop them at that point. Why?
No.
Because there's too many.
It's not too late. It's not too late. You don't know.
Look, I believe in the Constitution. I believe in God, and I think between God and the Constitution, it's not too late.
Good.
With God, all things are possible. And so I think
Amen.
I think that the founding fathers really laid out a blueprint for us to be able to not only to have a good country, but in the case of break this glass in case of emergency, I think the Constitution becomes break this glass in case of emergency to restore our country to the values. Is it going to be tough? Yes.
Yes.
It is going to be. Folks, I'm here to tell you, I think we got a hard slog over the next few years to fix this country, but we will not fix it with this current administration.
No.
You cannot vote these folks back
No.
in. If we don't take the Senate back, and if we don't take the presidency back, and if we don't maintain the House, this country will change in a way that you will not recognize.
Yeah, and that's why I'm doing this.
They started it during this administration by allowing so many people who are not Americans. Now, I often say they want to change the demographic of America. That has nothing to do with race. I'm talking about the demographic of Americans: white, black, Hispanic, Asian.
Amen.
Anybody that has come to America that is an American. That is our demographic. They're trying to change that. They're trying to water down Americans. And so
Changing our culture.
There's an estimate that there's probably, I think it's a conservative estimate, that maybe 50 to 60 million people are here illegally.
Yeah,
that is almost.
I heard 46 million, but
and I think that's a low figure. I really do. And I think you've allowed 12 to 15 million over the last
there was
3
46
years.
million, and now they're
So I think not only does that hurt us on a tax basis, that hurts us on the money they send back to their families. So it has an economic
redistricting.
impact. It hurts on redistricting because a lot of states are counting these people and then they're adding in more districts when they shouldn't. And then it's hurting our housing. There's so many downsides to it, not to mention crime is on the rise. You cannot not correlate those two things.
No.
There's a correlation to it. And so all of these things are just percolating to the surface, and it's a real problem. But my point is, you've now have about 20% of our population are not Americans. And that is a problem.
That's a problem.
And so when I say that they're trying to wash out what America was, that's basically what it is. They're trying to take all Americans, all of us, everybody from race, religion, politics.
Yep, separate us.
Americans as a whole, they're trying to dilute our patriotism, our allegiance to this country.
Divide and conquer.
Those are all real issues. I mean, I know we focus primarily on the border, but we've got national security.
No, you cover
threats.
everything. I mean,
and look, I've lived in other countries, and I think that's what makes me uniquely qualified.
What countries have you lived in?
I was born and raised in Hawaii. That's not a different country.
Aloha.
I was born and raised in Hilo. Then I moved to the Philippines when I was 11. So I lived in the Philippines.
How long?
I saw poverty 1 year. Saw poverty on a very deep level, and it really makes you appreciate America. I've spent a lot of my formative years. I came back to Arizona, went to high school in Chandler, but then my family moved to Panama while I was in high school. And I was there when the United States invaded Panama.
Wow.
I stood out front
Are you that old?
I stood out
Wait,
front.
how old are you?
I was 17 holding a gun standing
How
out
old are you
front.
now?
I'm 51.
I'm 59.
Yeah.
Who looks better?
Yeah. So I've been to Argentina, which, by the way, I love the new president in Argentina. I think if you don't think we can balance our budget, I lived in Argentina from 91 to 93. One of the biggest problems with Argentina, it's a beautiful country, beautiful people, food is off the charts good, the best beef you'll ever have. It's an amazing country, but they've always struggled because their governments aren't good, and their socialist programs, and not to mention they don't run their economy well. And so I understood inflation at a very young age. And
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It's only, I knew it was only a matter of time before we would experience something similar. It took us a lot longer to get there, but they finally, I think because they did away with some machines, the voting machines, but they got a guy named Javier Milei that's now the president down there. And if you haven't seen the guy, he's freaking awesome.
Oh my gosh. Did you see him when he saw President Trump?
Yeah, no, I didn't see that.
Oh my gosh, there's a video. He's like a fan. He's like,
yeah.
He's like, he gives of his culture. He's like grabbing onto him. President Trump's kind of okay. But when have you seen a president of a country, a newly elected president of a country, just giddy like a fan to another president? I mean, it was amazing. Watching him with President Trump.
He understands it. And so Argentina has always, I make the point because Argentina has always struggled with their economy, okay? In 2 months, he has balanced the budget.
Has he balanced the budget?
Balanced the budget in 2 months. Why? Because he's gotten rid of a lot of government organizations that you don't need.
Off. Yeah.
Folks, we got a lot of government organizations, the Department of Education, there's so many organizations, and and even the ones that might serve us, we have far too many people in those organizations. And so there needs to be some major cuts.
Yes.
He got it. In 2 months, they're balancing their budget. They're reducing. You should see their inflation reduction. It was like 24%. I think it's down to 12% in the time that he's been the president. So trust me, we can make these changes, but it starts with strong leadership. But I wanted to bring up one thing that he said, and which is part of the reason why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. And I loved it when he said it. And he actually was at the World Economic Forum when he said this. So he was in front of the World Economic Forum, people who probably can't stand him.
Exactly.
And he said, I'm not here to guide sheep. I'm here to awaken the lions.
Wow.
And that's what I'm here for. Americans are lions at heart. And I'm here to awaken the lions in this country and motivate you to get involved and to take our country back. And that starts by voting in good people who are proven conservative leaders and fighters that are going to defend our country, that are going to defend our freedoms, that are going to defend the Constitution, get back to the basics of God, family, freedom, and the Constitution, and understand that we're in a real battle of good and evil. And our ability to take this country back is going to depend on our goodness, which is what's made our country great for so long. So these are some of the reasons why I'm wanted. Please come to sherifflambforsenate.com. You can donate there. If you live in Arizona, you got a couple more days. You can sign my petition. I'm going to be submitting those signatures real soon. We're going to be on the ballot, and we're going to be able to work towards taking this state back, which taking the country back. And whether you live in Arizona or not, if you think that my being in the Senate doesn't affect you, I will tell you that the senators do not vote on bills that are specific to their states. The senators vote on bills that have an effect on all 50 states. So you should care, no matter what state you live in, who the senator from Arizona is, because if you have a good senator there, it's going to benefit you no matter what state you live in.
Exactly.
So
I can't. Can you see why I love this guy? Can you see why I love this guy? I mean, we had not met until this day.
Till this morning.
I wasn't.
And we weren't even sure if we were going to do this because it was raining.
It rained in Arizona. Imagine that. And I was like, the way I do my interviews is I want a person like Mark to have a platform so they can talk. I'm not doing the gotcha stuff like CNN and everything. And I'm looking for the truth like you are. This man's the truth right now. I mean, it's like, and I love the fact that he mentioned that a senator from Arizona affects the whole country. So if you're in, I'm like, oh, well, Washington, D.C. is a tough one.
Indiana,
whatever state you're in, Hawaii, call,
I like Hawaii.
Yes, you do. Yeah. Call people in Arizona and tell them to vote this man in. We have to have somebody that doesn't pander, and we got to have real people in. And we've got to have people like this. I've never been such an advocate with an endorsement for somebody that's running for politics and for Senate.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm serious. It's just refreshing to talk to you. I'm excited for you.
What's crazy is I don't even look. I'm not out looking for endorsements from other politicians or people.
Right.
Because I'm looking for endorsements from we the people. I want endorsements from the actual people. That's who matters to me. I want real people on the street to say, I endorse Sheriff Lamb.
Right.
Like you, and I don't think people in Washington, D.C., they continue to endorse politicians in other states, and they're playing in our politics, and they shouldn't. They should stay out of it and let us choose. These elitists and technocrats across the country in Washington, D.C. are picking who gets to serve you, or picking who's going to, I guess not serve that, because none of them have been serving us very well.
No.
Picking who's going to grift from you at the federal level.
Do you think it's because we were wrapping up, but I got another question.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Do you think that's because they can do insider trading, the senators and the congresspeople? It's not illegal for them to do that, so they get beholden to the lust of money, and they go south on it because they start giving up on the country and they start thinking about the money.
A lot of these people are rich already.
I mean, Nancy Pelosi is worth like $900 million. She makes like $275 a year.
I don't know. Look, that's part of it. But I think a lot of it is a lot of these people are already wealthy. And, a lot of the reason why they're getting wealthier is because they already had wealth that they could do insider trading with. But a lot of these people are already wealthy, and they're kind of already out of touch with what society needs. I'm running for office right now, and let me tell you, it is not easy because I'm a paycheck to paycheck guy. Like, I'm a sheriff. I don't make a lot of money. I'm here. I don't even make the most in my agency. I got like 20 guys that make more than I make in my agency. I'm doing this because I love America. It's actually cost me a lot of money financially because and it's cost a lot of time. I don't see my grandkids and my family very often right now.
You got grandkids?
I got the 3 grandkids.
Wow.
So I don't get a chance to see them very often. And so, but we're all committed, determined Americans to be free. And so we understand the sacrifice that comes along with running for office. But I will tell you, they're not picking the best candidates sometimes. These folks want to just pick who will best serve them and that. Mm-hmm. I saw a quote recently. We all know that quote that absolute power corrupts absolutely. I actually saw a variation of that where a guy said it's not that the power corrupts, it's that the power is magnetic to the corruptible. And that is truly it. I mean, I think that the power that exists in DC is very magnetic to the corruptible, the people that actually really just long for that power. And I think the money is also a part of it too. But I don't think that they're, you know, even the ones that go with the intention of maybe serving their folks quickly fall to the wayside. Yeah, I mean, the fact that our budget is the way it is and the border's wide open and all these issues that we're dealing with, I think it shows you we got the wrong people there.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank God for the lighting today.
Yes, right. Well, sorry. Yeah,
hey,
both bald.
My brother from another mother. It's like Dr. Evil, two Dr. Evils. But I want, you know, we have to bring people like Mark in, and it's important that we activate. We cannot sit on our butts this time. We can't just sit there and just think we're safe in our living rooms watching BLM burn the cities down while they're reporting mostly peaceful protests and the injustices that are going on around J6. It's never been more obvious how bad and corrupt our government is. And I thank President Trump for being the bull in the china shop. And I'm not going to make any excuses for his personality. Everybody's, oh, well, you're going to overlook his personality. I love it. I love how straightforward he is. And, you know, but people that are straightforward, even if they're not like saying the right thing, at least they're straightforward. You know,
well, have you ever been to a junkyard where there was a dog with no teeth guarding it?
No.
No, because a dog with no teeth does no good. So, you know, like, yeah, that dog may growl at you and show you his teeth and bark at you and nip at you and may even bite you. But guess what? Ain't nobody getting in that junkyard.
Can you tell Mark's unscripted? Can you tell him unscripted?
Now we have some senile old cute dog laying up on the front porch letting everybody in the junkyard. So yeah, I'm okay with the dog having teeth because that's the purpose of the dog at the junkyard.
And if you're still here watching this video, that means you're open to new information. If you're liberal leaning or you're Democrat leaning and you're seeing Mark and you're still here, I'm grateful for you. You know, this is a forum where we can talk to each other and be safe with each other. Don't go after my viewers. You can go after me. I can take the hits. But Sheriff Mark Lamb, ladies and gentlemen.
Be nice to me.
Sheriff Mark Lamb for the great state of Arizona, the Senate seat. You know, vote for him. Thank
Aloha. Yeah, so if you look over here, this used to be an area where during the Trump administration, these are where the gotaways come in through. So the people in the camouflage clothes, the carpet shoes, they're either transporting drugs or trafficking people, or they're coming in with they're paying the cartels from other countries. This is where your terrorists would come through too. And you can see this is the residue. This is area that hasn't been used for a while, but you can see backpacks underneath this grass that has grown over is tons of camouflage clothes and carpet shoes and backpacks, all the remnants of the people that have come into this country illegally. And this was one of their hot spots where they would come in, and then a car would drive in here under the cloak of darkness and pick them up, and they would leave, and we'd get into pursuits with these people all the time right from this area. But this was one of those hot spots that has since changed under this administration, because now they just walk across the border. And you know, one of the things that makes this impactful is this is not the border. This is 75 miles from the border. 75 miles from the border, this is where people are landing, well within our country. So that's what should be alarming to people. Thank you, Mark.